Hello, everyone, and welcome to the What's New in the JavaScript API live stream. Here we're going to be talking about the 4.25 release, sharing some demos and enhancements that we added at the last release. We're about to introduce ourselves, but before we do that, we want to know where you all are joining from. So let us know in the chat where you're coming from today, and yeah, we're excited to be here, excited to have you all here with us. So now we're going to go around and introduce ourselves and share a little fun fact. So my name is Anne. I'm a product engineer on the JavaScript API team. And my fun fact is that I spent the last week and a half in Japan, which was awesome. And now I'll popcorn to Julie.
Thanks, Anne. Well, my fun fact is I just got back from Italy, and I probably ate my body weight in pasta and desserts and cannoli. And I will hand it to Christian.
Yeah, I'm Christian Ekenis. I've been working on the JS API for 8 years now on data viz capabilities. My fun fact is I love walruses, and I've got one right here in my office that is always keeping me company. And I'll pass it over to Jan.
Hi, I'm Jan Kebon. I'm a software engineer on the JavaScript API. I've been, fun fact, I don't know. It's like I've been 10 years on the JavaScript API. It's been a while, working a lot with all of you guys. And yeah, I'm gonna pass it to Arno.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Arno. I'm a developer evangelist on the 3D JavaScript API, working from Zurich. And fun fact, I generally try to figure out directions without using a map.
Wow.
Who do we? Lauren, you haven't intro yet, right?
I have not. I'm Lauren Boyd. I'm a product engineer for the JavaScript API team. Fun fact about me is I like to roller skate. I'm not crazy and going in the bowls and stuff, but cruising around down by the beach and stuff is fun. So, and last but not least, Heather.
Hey everyone, I'm Heather Gonzago. I am a PE on the JavaScript API team. And fun fact, I don't know if I'm fun anymore. I always laugh. I'm the old lady of the bunch. But I love history podcasts. I'm kind of a geek in that. So if anybody has any fun, cool history podcast suggestions, throw those in the chat as well. So I'm always up for new ones.
Awesome. And it looks like we have people joining from all over the place. I see Germany, North Carolina, Almeria. Oh, that's Spain, Phoenix, Virginia again, Seattle, Sweden, another Germany. So lots of fun people joining us from all over the world. Thanks for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started, but as we do some demos and whatnot, feel free to ask questions in the chat, and we'll try to get to them as soon as we can. And now I'll pass it off to Lauren, who's going to start us off with talking about related records and pop-ups.
Thanks, Anne. So this is brand new. Everyone I think was really excited about it. I was, at least, when I got to work on it. But you can now view related records within your pop-ups. And if you're not familiar with what related records are, it's just creating a relationship between either a layer or a table or a layer to a layer, so that you can associate features with one another without having them be in the same layer. As of right now, you can only view, you can browse, but support for editing will be added later on. So I wanted to just kind of go over what this looks like in one of our samples. So if you're in our release notes or in our sample doc, we have a new browse related record sample here. So if you're in the release notes, you just click on that and you can get there. So for this sample, all it's doing is it's loading a few different layers. All of it's from CAL FIRE here in California, showing the different fires that we've had over 2017 to 2021. And then it's also showing certain fire facilities that we have in the area, in the state. And then also the administration areas that these stations report to. So I'll just kind of show you, let me show you on the big screen here. So in the sample, all I have is a pop-up configured here. And we have just the normal pop-up here at the top where the fields are configured. But as you can see, there's three, actually I added 3 relationships, 3 different pieces of content here. And what this is showing is our relationship content. And the relationship content is what you need to configure and add to your pop-up template to be able to browse your related records. So as of right now, I clicked on this unit here, this Sonoma Lake Napa unit, which is an administrative unit. In this relationship here, this is displaying the relationship to which fires that this unit helped respond to. So this fires is a whole different layer, which you can see kind of the red, orange. Let me pull up the legend for you. So these are the wildfire burn area colors. So you can see there's a few fires in this unit. And so you can actually visualize data from this other layer within the pop-up of this unit layer because they have that relationship configured. So I can click on this, one of these fires. So let's look at this Hennessy fire, which I ordered by, this is ordered by the most to least acreage burn. So these fires within this have burned 305,352 acres. And if we click on that related feature, you can see it opens up and it's still in this initial pop-up or the original pop-up. It's just showing you browsing through this feature. And so I can show just my field info. So this is the field info set up in the pop-up template. But I also have another relationship. So this fire layer is actually related back to the unit, right? It's related back to the unit layer. So I can show which units responded to this fire. So as you can see, you can kind of get into this going down deep and drilling into these related records. So we added these ways to get out of these related records. You can either go back, so you go back to the feature that you were looking at, or you can fully exit and go back to the original pop-up. This is really simple to add to your code, so I just wanted to quickly show. This is the unit layer here. You can see that. Let me open this a little bit. So I have my field content here, right? And that's this portion of the pop-up. But then I just added these relationship contents, and it's this easy. All you need to do is just add this relationship type, the ID found on the service, description that displays here, and then how many related records you want to show in the list, which is 2, and my title, and then my order by, which I ordered by the most to least acreage burned. Using this, related record browser, it'll help you in terms of, with your data integrity, being able to display information from other records. So I know a lot of people use it in terms of, with utility network uses it a lot. But yeah, so that's the gist of records. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass it off to Christian just to show you some of the data visualization stuff.
Thanks, Lauren. So while Christian's joining, I just want to remind everyone that if you have questions, please throw them in the chat. This is what we're here for, to help you. So we want to hear your questions. Yeah, go ahead, Christian.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Anne, and thanks, Lauren. So I'm going to talk about some of the clustering updates that we've made to the JavaScript API this release. I first wanted to point out that we have a high-density data guide pages that we've written in our homepage that you can see here. If you just go to the homepage of our documentation, then you click on the visualization category, and then you can navigate to high-density data. We've been paying a lot of attention recently to improving the experience for visualizing lots of data. It's been a common question over the years when you have a lot of points, how do you visualize them properly? And so we're trying to be very deliberate and helpful in helping you visualize your data in meaningful ways. So I just wanted to point out too that the examples I'm going to show are all available in our documentation, or our sample code in the documentation. Again, under visualization and then clustering, you'll find a ton of examples here, and this is where I'm pulling directly from. When we talk about clustering, what we're talking about is taking a point layer and trying to represent overlapping or features that are spatially close so that they display as aggregates. So in this case, we're looking at earthquakes in Alaska, and you can see that there's a lot going on here in the last month, but it's a little difficult to see where there's more earthquakes happening in certain locations. Like you can tell that there's a lot going on up here, but over here, you may actually not be aware that there's a lot that are stacking up on top of each other. And the way that we've been doing this for years now is that you can enable feature reduction and set a type to cluster. And this will allow the points to coalesce in effect and create these clusters to show where more features exist. So by default, you'll get a legend that will tell you the number of features. And if we go down here, you'll see that it looks like there weren't very many earthquakes, but there's actually a lot going on here. Now, this is a very basic, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you real quick with a question from the chat. Do these high density data techniques work with stream services?
With StreamLayer, yes, they should. So just wanted to, yes.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
Easy answer.
So anyway, this is what you get by default just by a simple property. You enable a type cluster. And then of course you can, if I refresh this page and show the original code here, you'll see that you can enable a lot more. You can configure the cluster radius, set a pop-up showing the cluster count. Of course, you can show the label with the cluster count, and you can do a whole lot. And because trying to figure out which cluster radius and what font and things you should use for your labels is kind of difficult, we provide methods that generate those properties for you. So we call these smart mapping methods. If I go to the top of my code here, you'll find them under Esri smart mapping, labels, or clusters. So in this example, we're actually only generating a pop-up template and labels and setting them in our cluster object. And that's how we get these nice looking labels and pop-ups here. You'll notice that this is a little different visualization because I'm using a unique value renderer to style my points. If I disable clustering, I just see points colored by a category. But when you enable clustering, the color of the predominant category is represented, or the cluster represents the predominant category. And while this works really well, and it's worked well historically, it doesn't fit all use cases, of course. And people have asked for the ability to use a pie chart instead to show the distribution of categories, or to override the symbol completely to show that it's an aggregate and not an individual feature. And so those are the new capabilities that came out this release. So if I go back to this original example showing earthquakes, let's say that you symbolize your earthquakes with a triangle. So if I move down to my layer here, I set a simple render and with a marker that's a triangle shape, and that's what you see here. But instead of showing the aggregates with the exact same symbol as before, I'm going to choose to show them as a circle. So when I set up my clustering, there's this new symbol property which allows you to create this this cluster symbol, and that could, you can customize that however you want to. So I could say I want the aggregates to be yellow, so it makes it really obvious, and you can override your aggregate symbol that way. So that's a really small feature, I guess, that we've added, but a lot of people asked for, and hopefully it works and it's useful. And I just want to point out that the individual points will represent or use the layers render in any case. So if this were unique types or if it were class breaks, you would still see the colors of those individual symbols show through. Alrighty. Another example that people have asked about is representing a sum or a total. Rather than the total count as clusters, they want to show the sum of another attribute. So in this case, we're looking at cities, and I've clustered cities, and instead of using a total count, I am sizing each cluster by the population. So if I go to my cluster configuration right here, this is done a little differently than by setting a symbol. Here I'm actually creating an aggregate field. This is a field that you can create just on the client to determine how to represent data from your individual features. So for example, each of these cities has a population field called pop, and I'm going to sum the population from each of those from that field for all the features in the cluster, and then name it population total. And then I can do whatever I want to with that field. I can set up a simple renderer and then set up a size visual variable and call it population total, or refer to this here. And then I can size these however I want to. So as I zoom in, you see those clusters break apart and coalesce, and you get a different visualization. Another use case has been to show, I guess, priority features in a cluster. So sometimes, let's say you have crash data like this one. This has been asked about a couple of times, where people want to show only fatalities or clusters that only contain fatalities. And so this is a case where I have, there's thousands of crash data points in New York City here, and I want to color the clusters based on whether or not a fatality occurred within that cluster. And so when you pan around and zoom, you can see that these clusters are red based on whether they include a fatality, or they're this beige color if they don't. And as I zoom in, they'll break apart and you'll see the patterns emerge there. And that's set up similarly as this last one with the cities. You have to set up your aggregate fields. I've actually set up a lot here just for the purposes of the pop-up. So if I open the pop-up, you see a bunch of different stats available. But the one that is of interest is this fatalities field, or the number of persons killed. And so I want to say, I want to sum those together, give it a name, and then I can set up a class breaks render where I have a break that says no fatalities, so there was 0 that occurred there. And then any number greater than that, I'll say it includes a fatality to give it this red color. So that's how you would configure a style for your clusters this way. And last but not least is the ability to configure pie or donut charts for your clusters. So this is 311 calls in New York City. And if I use the predominant, like the default styling, so if I refresh this, you'll see these clusters are visualized this way, which is nice. You can see the predominant complaint type that was made, like blocked driveway or illegal parking. But when you look at the statistics of these, I guess I'm not showing it here, you'll note that the predominant type is not necessarily the majority. And so we provide a function for you similar to those pop-up and label functions that will generate the aggregate fields and the renderer that will allow you to create a pie chart or a donut chart. So you can say shape donut or shape pie, and it will create the proper style. And then I take those return objects, just set them on my clustering or my feature reduction property, and it will create a nice chart. So now you can see the distribution of different types within each cluster. And so I went through all these examples really fast. I just wanted to point out also that just a few minutes ago, I published this blog post that goes through all of these scenarios, so you can read about it more in depth. I also provide the code, so you can click in there and look around and explore it with your own data. So if you have any questions, please post them in the chat. I'll do my best to get to them. Also, feel free to reach out to me directly, and I'll try to address your concerns. So thank you. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Arno for 3D stuff.
Thanks, Christian. Yeah, I want to go over some of the 3D specific features that we released in 4.25. I believe that is editing that we're seeing there. I do have some 3D editing, but that's not it. Moderator, can I have my screen?
Yeah, it looks like we need to switch the screen. There we go. Perfect.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah, the first one being length dimensioning. This is something that has been around on the ArcGIS platform before, used in, for example, utility networks. And yeah, we added support for that now in 3D. That allows you to communicate length or distances by placing these dimensions in the 3D scene. And to show how you do this, so this is a new sample that we put out. I recommend you go and check it out. But I'm going to switch over to full screen now to show you, for example, how you can place your own. And this is another new capability that we added that helps you place these dimensions in 3D, is full 3D snapping. So we had snapping for drape layers in 3D before, but now we really snap to all 3D objects in your scene. For example, also buildings showing scene layers showing buildings like these ones here, the OpenStreetMap buildings here in Utrecht, that allow you to really place these dimensions exactly at the vertices or along the edges that you want to. You can adjust them interactively, for example, the offset or also a rotation. But a fun thing that we did here in this sample is not only allowing you to place them interactively, but also programmatically here around these floor plates. And we do this, or we combine this here with a floor filter. So if you move up and down, we apply a client-side filter and then move the dimensions to the floor, to the top floor that is currently shown, adjusting also the height. And what you see here also is that you can have, you can customize the dimensions with different colors or labels. Thanks. Yeah, one thing I would like to point out here that you might have noticed in the scene is an improved rendering. On one hand, we have the ambient occlusion that kind of helps you to see the 3D objects better with adding the shade in corners or along the ground. For this, this is a setting you have to set in the environment properties. And another feature that we added here for terrain is if you have a base map that doesn't have the hill shade baked in. So for example, the our topo base maps already have that baked in, but for example, this OpenStreetMap one does not have hillshade baked in. This is where we added shading dynamically to the terrain using the elevation information, the DEM. And it's dynamic, meaning that if you, for example, change the time of day, you will see the shade adjust to that depending on where the sun is coming from. So those are some visual improvements that we added in the last release. Then I want to quickly point out some additions to the voxel scene layer, which we released earlier this year. So scene layers are useful for volumetric visualizations, for example, subsurface data or atmospheric measurements. And here in this app that my colleague Raluca put out, we have some geological model of Darmstadt that we can now dynamically slice in with the voxel layer. So this is what you can do here with this sample. On one hand, slicing along this fault line, but then you can also place the surfaces and the sections dynamically for this voxel layer, really allowing you to explore the data of this voxel layer. And then a last thing I want to point out, which I kind of already showed, so that was the snapping. I'm going back here to this Utrecht scene that we started off with, the dimensioning. Here looking inside the building. So we had 3D snapping there for dimensioning, and I wanted to quickly point out that you can also make use of this when editing. So I'm going to enable this here in the editor widget to place a new apartment. And this is exactly where we should be able to snap to existing geometries. And you can see that this, whoa, there's another line there right below. So you can see that we're snapping along this 3D geometries, but we can also snap to other objects in the scene that are not on the same level while still drawing planar polygons and lines. Here allowing me to create this new apartment space and combine this here with some other features that we added this year in the editor widget. So some computed fields that take the apartment area and compute, for example, an estimated rent and a number of rooms depending on the size of the apartment. But for some of the other editing improvements, I want to hand back to Heather.
Before we pass it over, Arno, there's a question in the chat that you might know the answer to. Will rule package from CGA be supported in the JavaScript API or a simplified version of it?
That is a really good question. I would like to see that. It's not currently on the near-term roadmap, but yeah, I would like to see that for sure.
Awesome, thanks. All right, go ahead, Heather.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so can you guys see everything? Good, okay. So some of you may or may not be familiarized or do a lot of editing, but the ones that do probably have noticed that we've had quite a bit of updates or trying to do quite a bit of updates in the past year or so, and still a lot more to come as well. This past release was a pretty significant one, specifically with our feature form and how it works with arcade expressions. So if we take a look, this is the sample that we have actually in our release notes, but yeah, so within the actual release notes. So if you take a look here in this demo, what we have is, I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys something real quick, and then I'll go and explain what we've done for our updates. I'm just going to go in and start placing some trees in here. So the way I have this form configured, I'm working with some contingent values. This is not a new thing. We've had this before. So basically just making the data entry a little bit more foolproof, just making it easier and a little less air prone. So we'll go in there. I'm just going to use, I have those contingent values for that one. And then here within the tree information, I have an expression set up so that based upon the circumference, it will go ahead and automatically provide the diameter. So this is nice as well because it provides a way basically just for your data entries. So making sure that you're not putting in bad data, right? So that expression takes care of it, automatically done for you. This right here is just, this is something that we could have done before though. The difference with this release is that now, in addition to being able to access and work specifically only with features within the actual layer, that you're editing, we can now actually get to layers outside of the feature that you're working on. So whether they're in the map or not, we have access to the feature set and not just the feature, which is a really, really big deal. It adds so much more functionality within working with expressions within the feature form. So our next one here actually shows you this. So what you'll notice is I added this tree up here along Sterling Road. What it does is I have an expression set within this form that automatically calculates the nearest address. So I have an address layer here in this map as well, and it calculates the nearest address based upon a buffer that I have set within this expression. It also goes in, so basically what it's doing is just an intersect under the hood. In addition to that, it also works with an expression for districts. So there's a district layer as well that it will go in there and check and say, hey, where does this point that I'm creating, what does it intersect and what district does it fall in? And then based on that value, go in here and update that field input. In addition to that, you'll notice here I've got my latitude and longitude. So I can also go in, and if you guys take a look, I'm just going to change this. I'm going to move it over to Las Feliz or La Loma Drive, somewhere around here. So take notice here. The nearest address is updated, and then our latitude and longitude is updated as well. What we have done without going into a ton of bits and pieces, just for time constraint, we have provided async support within our feature form. The feature form is the widget that's used within the editor under the hood. We now have support for asynchronous. It reads the input fields asynchronously, whereas prior to this release, everything was just one at a time. So it all was done synchronously. It adds so much more functionality and allows you to do there's a ton of stuff that now we can do, but beyond just working with the actual feature within the layer itself. In addition to different layers, you can build upon expressions, so not having to wait for like in this case, what I just showed you, you're going in here and I updated that location from one to another. It was at the same time, I was updating the address, the nearest address, in addition to the latitude and longitude. We've done some optimizations under the hood. So basically so that it wouldn't bog down your system. So if you're running a ton of evaluations or expressions, it's not going to go in and reevaluate every single expression that you have saved within that map if it's not needed. So basically, if your values haven't changed and your field that you're using in that expression and that value hasn't changed, it knows it, and it's not going to go in and rerun everything. So yeah, there was a lot of work done. I know that our developers this was something. It's a long work that it was a long time coming, and a lot of hard work went into trying to get this optimized and working as how we want it to. So hopefully everybody will be happy with what we have here. In addition to this is the big thing, but in addition to this, we also had a ton of other stuff going too. we've had a lot of UI improvements. So basically just kind of quality of life things to try to make it easier as you're editing. One of the big things that we've had over the years was, just adding new features. Can I add an attachment at the same time when I create my new feature? Prior to 4.25, you couldn't do that. You had to actually wait until you had to create your feature first. Once that feature was created, then you can go back in, update it, and then add that attachment. So we've taken that one step out, and you can do it all at once. We've added a couple properties in addition to just these basic UI improvements. We've added a couple properties for the update workflow, so you can go in and even constrain what you want your end users to be able to do. If you say, hey, it's wide open, but let's say, for a specific layer, you want only attributes to be allowed, and you don't want any geometry updates to be allowed on that. You can set that now within the layer info. So in this particular case, I just took an example, like just one of our samples that we have. And then in the, I don't know if you guys can see this okay. Here we have attribute updates enabled. So this was one of our new properties that we have added at 4.25. So basically what this does is it says, hey, I don't want the end user to be able to go into this polygon layer, and within an update session, I don't want them to be able to go in and update those attributes. So once I set that, if I went in here and I was like, hey, I'm going to go in and I want to try, you see, these are all, I'm clicking on description here. It's all, these are grayed out and you can't do anything. Update is grayed out. So that's a big one. I know we've had a lot of people asking that for some time. And another one, very quick here, because I know we want to get some other things covered, is the tooltip options. 3D had this in the scene viewer last release. Yeah, last release. We have provided the support for it for 2D. We have it turned off default, but if you care to do so, you can go in and set the tooltip options within the editor, just within the constructor itself. And what that does is it allows you to go in here, and you'll notice I've got, you can see my length. So I have this all showing up. I have snapping set on this too, so that's what those orange lines are. Goes in, I can create, got a new line feature. I'm just going to create that quickly. And if I go in, and I can also go, if I want to update that, you'll notice here that the tooltip, the input also provides the size and the scale for this as well. And yeah, so there's a lot of stuff. And really, really cool. I'm excited. There's so much information that I could probably dump out at you all in this time, but we don't have enough time for all of that. So keep posted to the editor though, because we have a lot of really neat and exciting things coming down the line. And yeah, that's it. So I'm not sure if I was the last one, or Jan. No, I'm going to pass it on over to Jan now, and he is going to go over some of the updates on the layer work that's been done.
Yeah, and thanks, Heather. It seems like a lot of people in the chat are really excited about this new editing capabilities. So yeah, thanks, everyone. Go ahead, Jan.
Yes, thanks, Heather. Yeah, I will cover the various updates that we made to several layers, starting with the media layer. Media layer was added in 4.24. It's a layer to be able to display images and videos, and then specify where to place them using an extent. So it's images, videos in 2D and 3D. And for example, to place an image element, you can specify a URL to the image, and then here I specify the extent. So this is very similar to what we had in 3x. API. You can specify here an extent, you could specify a rotation, you can specify the location of the four corners. Here I have the extent of this map from Tahiti. And in 4.25, we added the ability to, instead of placing using an extent, to use control points, up to 4 control points. So here I have this old map. Let's see in the big, this old map. And what is a control point? A control point, instead of specifying the extent or the location of the 4 corners, you can specify any points that are located inside the image. So here in this sample, we place the points inside the image here at the corners of the actual content of that image. And to do that, you specify your 4 control points using a source point, which will be the pixels. The pixels in the image, and then the location on the map, right? And then based on that, after we do like some math magic to actually stretch the image correctly. In this sample, we use the sketch view model also to be able to drag the points on the location. So that's for 4.25. We are already working on the ability to have having a simple editing experience, because it's kind of hard to be able to place those images using code. So to be able to just click on an image, drag and drop it, scale it, rotate it, and so on. So that will be coming next. On the rendering side of the media layer, we change also the way we stretch images. You can see here that when I was stretching that, moving that corner, you can see here there is this divide at the center of my image, and that doesn't look good. So in 4.25 now we have this new technique where we apply some sort of a perspective, and it feels a little bit more natural. So that's for media layer. Then we have some updates on, I will go first on imagery tile layer. So we first added the ability to define the multi-dimensional subset. So you can imagine that your imagery service may have like lots of data, lots of slices of data that you can visualize. You can control through time, a variable, or from different variables. Here I have the soil moisture variable or the soil temperature variable. And maybe you have like more data than you want to expose through your application. So now with this new variable, the multidimensional subset, you can specify which slices you want your application to interact with. So here I'm just saying that I want to control the soil moisture or the soil temperature, and then I can specify the discrete set of values or range and so on. So here after in my app, I can my slider will only display these variables. Another enhancement that was that is great is to be able to work with transposed variables. So the best way to explain it is through this example. For example, we have the wind directions and speed for each day of the year 2011. And so before 4.25, when I was, let's say I want to know, I want to create this chart, which is the distribution of the directions of the wind, I had to query each slice of data, so each day individually. So I had to make 365 queries, identify code, but now in 4.25, you can specify in your identify call, you can specify the parameter to say, I want to get all the wind directions for all the days in one shot. And so you get back the data in one call. So now you can like create this wind rows chart very easily. Big new addition also this release is the support for cloud optimized GeoTIFF. So a TIFF So COG, Cloud Optimized GeoTIFF is a TIFF file where the data inside is organized in tile. And you can see that the way it works is that when we zoom in, we keep requesting the same file, but then we ask for a different range of, I hope it's clear on the screen, different range of bytes inside that TIFF file. And so you can have on your server a very large, TIFF file, but then we will only request the relevant bytes. Well, something is wrong with the network here. And then after you can enjoy from all the capabilities from the imagery tile layer. So you can change the renderer. You can also identify for the pixel values and create some charts. Well, I don't know what. Oh yeah, so yeah, it's been coming. So you can interact with the layer like you would do with any imagery tile layer. Androl, that is our product engineer on this feature, created a new blog post on the community website, and she created also a video to talk about the new layer and how to deal with the errors that the layer can throw at you, because we don't support every every capabilities of the Cloud Optimized GeoTIFF files. So she shows you how to fix your file so that it is compatible with the JavaScript API. So that's a very exciting enhancement. Unrelated to that, we added also a long time coming a highlight for map image layer. So if you have a map service so that you consume with a map image layer, and you define a pop-up, we didn't use to have the highlight for the features that you clicked on. So that's we just updated this sample to have the highlight. We still don't have the public API to control the highlight programmatically, but we'll be working on that for a future release. And then the last small addition we added is on stream layer. We added the capability to be able to consume the stream service without displaying it. We added this new method in the method called connect. You can call connect here with some connection parameters, like for example, the special reference. And then once you get the connection from the layer, you can listen to the data received event. And then you will get an event every time there is a new feature coming in. And then you can do whatever you want with it, displaying them in a table, or here I'm just adding it to the view graphics. And with that, so that's, all the layer updates. I will pass along to Julie to talk about DevSummit.
Thanks, Jan. So some of you guys might have seen the blog that went out, I believe last week it was, or maybe, no, the week prior, about our name change. We're changing all of the native SDKs, which was runtime, and the JavaScript API name. And I wanted to go over just really quickly what that means. First of all, it's only a name change. Everything's the same technology. So there's literally nothing changing about the API or any of the resources we provide. Our motivation is really having more consistency across Esri's native and web technologies. So they'll all have that same pattern of ArcGIS Maps SDK for, and then in our case, JavaScript. And we also added that maps part to kind of help be more descriptive about what this SDK really is helping people do, is obviously mapping. And we also are using the SDK term because really what we're providing is an SDK. It's including all the resources, the documentation, the samples, tutorials, everything that we're providing alongside the API. And of course, the SDK also includes an API. So we're introducing this next December, which is a couple days? Wait, is that today is December? No, not yet. This week is December. So we're changing this name in a couple weeks. And so just be aware of that. Don't feel alarmed. It's really just a name change and no change to the actual technology under the hood. I also wanted to mention, as Jan mentioned, the Developer Summit is coming up next March. It is an incredible event for anyone that's using our technology to build applications. We really put a lot into this. It's more than 220 sessions, covering a really wide range of topics. I just took the session descriptions and just put them in a word cloud. You can see how many different topics we'll be covering. And really, it's kind of gearing towards all different types of developers, whether you're brand new to the API, maybe you've done other development, but you're new to web development, maybe you're advanced and you're just wanting to learn some more best practices for using the API. And then there's very focused topics as well, whether you're looking to fine tune your performance or you're interested in accessibility or different visualization techniques. We'll be covering quite a bit. You also get access to the whole, all of the dev team. You can sit down and talk about your own project and show them what you're doing, ask questions, get information about what we're working on in the next year. So it's an incredible event. And you, of course, get to connect with all of the peers, other people that are building apps and get ideas. So it's an incredible event, and I couldn't recommend it, suggest it more. I also would like to invite you to share your feedback on the API. We'll post that survey link in the chat. This is an opportunity to share what you're doing, capabilities you'd like to see, talk about what things you like, what things you'd like to see improved, share information about what your customers are doing. So if you want us to know like trends you're seeing in the industry you're working in, or an area where you'd like us to focus some more effort, this is a great way for you to share that information with us. And so finally, if you'd like to share some feedback on what you saw today, let us know what features you think you might be using that you saw us present on. Share that in the chat. Also, if you liked what we did and the kind of the format with this live kind of interactive approach, please like this YouTube video, and you can add comments. Also, if you want to see future ones, you could subscribe, and then you can also get email notifications. You can subscribe to our newsletter. So there's lots of ways to stay connected, and we really hope you enjoyed our talk today, and we look forward to talking to you next time.
Julie, one question before we finish wrapping up. With the new name, is it more correct to say ArcGIS Maps SDK 4.25 for JavaScript, or ArcGIS Maps SDK for JavaScript 4.25, or something else?
You can say either. You can say either. In terms of moving around the version name, it's technically we usually put the version name. Let's see, I haven't actually tried it out with our new name, ArcGIS Maps SDK. Probably put the 4.25 there for JavaScript, but you can put it at the end as well. Either are correct.
And then one more question in the chat. When will Calcite components come out of beta?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes, the team is working really hard to work towards our production release. Right now it's scheduled for January 2023. We're working hard to get that out before the next JavaScript and online releases. So right now I think it's January 17th approximately for when we plan to get the production release of Calcite out.
Awesome. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat. Thank you everyone for joining, and we can't wait to see you at DevSummit.
Thanks everyone.